Welcome to Contemporary Retirement. Contemporary Retirement is a public interest program focused on the retirement community. Every program has segments on legal, financial, and health issues affecting the retirement community. Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a major grant from the Family Heritage Trust Company.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored by Family Heritage Trust Company. The Family Heritage Trust Company is an independent bank chartered trust company established by local professionals to provide fiduciary services, including fee-based investment advice, trust services, retirement planning, and tax planning. The Family Heritage Trust Company is committed to client service in our communities. For more information, call the Family Heritage Trust Company at 301-631-5900.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a grant from R. Thomas Murphy & Associates, P.C. R. Thomas Murphy & Associates is one of Franklin County's leading law firms, emphasizing estate, trust, elder law, and medical assistance planning.
Welcome to the Is It Legal feature on Contemporary Retirement. Is It Legal focuses on the legal issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Tom Murphy from the R. Thomas Murphy Law Firm with offices in Waynesboro, Chambersburg, and McConnellsburg. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Good morning, Mike.
You know, Tom, we talk about benefits planning, and benefits planning manifests itself in a lot of different ways. So, for instance, you and I routinely engage in a pattern of helping people obtain benefits that people would be shocked to find out that we can't get paid for.
Well, exactly. One of the big ones is in the Veterans Administration area. So there's a program called Aid and Attendance, and we regularly don't bill. And it's just a nice benefit for honorably discharged veterans and their surviving spouses.
And so, you know, we do it in our firm. We don't charge for it either. You know, my dad was career military, and we just feel it's part of our civic responsibility to help veterans get those benefits. And so the reality is that you have to be accredited, which your firm is and our firm is.
Right. Both Jared and myself are. But most of it is leading people to the programs. And we have a good relationship with our local VA office, and so there's a team approach there, but we still need to explain and detail that to families so they understand the program.
And one of the great challenges we have in dealing with aid and attendance is the fact that, first of all, you have to have those discharge papers, and unfortunately there was a fire in St. Louis in the 80s in which a lot of those were destroyed, and so many times people don't realize they have the only copy in existence.
That's a good point. And so for any of our families we're dealing with, we're usually encouraging them to get their hands on that DD 214 and marriage certificates and death certificates of the veteran and so on.
And put them in a safe deposit box where they're
Exactly.
not a safe deposit box where they're 100% safe.
That's a good point, because as you mentioned, they may be the only originals and they may be 60 to 80 years old, and so you need to hang on to them.
And oftentimes in that safe deposit box, we're going to tell them to put death certificates. And why do I need a death certificate? Well, my spouse died 8 years ago, but that house is titled jointly. You're going to need that death certificate to prove that the one spouse is deceased.
Yeah, good point. It comes up any number of places, and you know, they just may be dealing with various accounts or qualifying for a benefit or whatever it might be.
And the problem is if you start making an application for a death certificate for somebody who passed a long time ago, the immediate assumption of the government, it's identity theft, which is a legitimate concern.
Right.
In the meantime, it could hold you up for some period of time being able to establish either the sale of that property or perhaps qualifying for other government benefits.
Well, exactly. It's not that the records aren't out there in most cases, it's just a bear to get a hold of them. So you're much better off keeping control of your own documents so that you can have them at your fingertips.
But you add your powers of attorney to that safe deposit box, and many times the bank will say, we're only going to give you 2 keys. We don't care how many keys we have. We just want to make sure that the powers of attorney, if there's 2 or 3 of them, can all access that box in order to get to that information if they need it in the future.
That's a good point. The last thing you want to do is spend $100 or $200 trying to drill a box for no reason other than you lost a key.
Well, that's still better than not having their name on it with no legal authority to be able to even access that box.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You know, one of the other challenges we have here in dealing with aid and attendance, there are these purported service bureaus out there. They can't charge for doing aid and attendance either, so they get around it by selling an annuity product.
Yeah, you'll see that unfortunately a lot, and they'll sell it in such a way that also then jeopardizes future Medicaid eligibility unnecessarily.
And almost always it involves a transfer, That transfer is a penalty transfer, and the product that they sell them, you're going to have big commissions paid on it, and oftentimes that product is not accessible. In order to return it back to the person if they're in the nursing home, you end up with periods of significant ineligibility, solving one problem but by creating another problem.
Well, that's a good point. And again, the VA process is usually free, and so you don't need to buy anything in order to qualify. And so sometimes that's not clear with some of these agencies, and they end up basically being nothing more than an annuity salespeople.
And it's a way of getting around that you can't charge fees to do this stuff. And so the reality is that we'll provide consultations on that. We don't charge for those consultations because we can't charge for them, but we're content to do it. We want to maximize the benefit available to the family, and we're going to do whatever it takes to get that.
Yeah, and it's a process, and most people have the information necessary to fill out those applications and the paperwork, so we can lead it to them, and it works out really well.
So Tom, as always, I want to thank you for taking time to appear on our program.
It's my pleasure.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Few things in life are as important as family. Leave your insurance orders to us. Write Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
Every life that meets its end leaves a heart for love to mend. Sister, brother, family, friends are left to carry on. When the loss seems more than you can bear, it's nice to know that we'll be there at Double A Fiery Funeral Home. We care.
Call Ed Lowe to help put your mind at ease.
Welcome to special guest feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various issues which are of importance to the retirement community. With me today is Paul Sweeney, President of Quality First Insurance Agency, an agency specializing in senior health insurance products. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
You know, we were talking last week about the enrollment in Part B and the assumption that many people have that when you reach 65, you must enroll in Part B. Is that statement true or not?
It can be, but it also cannot be. If you're still working and you're covered by your employer plan, you probably don't want to enroll in Medicare Part B.
Now, if you had a very small group, then perhaps you do need to enroll in Part B, but as long as the employer plan is primary, you don't need to enroll in Part B.
You don't need to, especially if the employer is paying the full cost for you as well.
And so you have to balance both the premium cost associated with Part B, the cost of a Medicare supplement, and so it's actually a combined cost. So you might find the employer contributions $300, but if you had to pay both the Part B premium and the Medicare supplement premium, if it weren't necessary, it could easily be more than the employer contribution.
That's true, and we do, generally, we meet with people all the time when we do evaluations. We'll look and see what they're paying, what their employer is paying, and many times it may be less expensive to go on to Medicare Part B and get a supplemental plan, but many times it may not be. So everybody's situation is different. There's no cookie cutter answer. We're not going to say that everybody has to do this.
And of course, then you look at the coverage plans. You know, there's essentially 3 types of health insurance out there under the Affordable Care Act. Some have virtually no costs associated with them. Some have some fairly substantial initial deductibles before there's any coverage. And if you don't have any contribution from the employer to deal with those deductibles, you might be better off opting out and getting Part B and a supplement.
That's very common. We see a lot of people that have high deductible plans with high premiums associated with them because they're not covered by an employer plan, and when they reach age 65, it is very cost effective, and many times it's less expensive premium-wise and better coverage as well.
So generally speaking, ignoring the employer plan issue, we almost uniformly recommend people need to take Part B unless they're going to try to play a game with a Part C plan.
Yeah, and Part C plans are it's trading dollars is a good way of explaining it. It's better than Medicare alone, but it's not better than having Medicare and a Medicare supplement, because they are required to cover what Medicare covers, but they also have substantial copays associated with them, and you pay as you use it.
And so in some instances, particularly where we have people who are not insurable under any other circumstance, we might use it. But generally speaking, most people are better served today by being in traditional Medicare with a Medicare supplement.
Especially in our area. In a rural environment, it's normally better to have traditional Medicare and a traditional Medicare supplement and a prescription drug program through Medicare Part D.
And as you say, rural area, our basic viewing area, well, you know, we have a lot of population here, but one of the problems is it's essentially very little competition in the rural areas to get these Part C plans. You get into urban areas and then they're a little bit more competitive and they can control the networks better and the coverage might be a little better.
That's an excellent point, because when you do live in an urban area, there's a lot of hospitals, a lot of competition, so the rates are generally going to be lower for the coverage and the copays are going to be lower as well.
But in any event, one of the things that we cautioned people last week, and we'll re-caution people, if you're staying under your employer plan, you do not need to enroll in Part B, and in fact, there's an absolute negative to having done so.
You don't want to make that mistake, because if you sign up for it, when you turn 65 and you retire more than 6 months later, a couple of years later, you're going to lose your open enrollment feature.
That open enrollment means you can get a Medicare supplement without medical underwriting, which means they have to take you.
Right, and there's no need to sign up for it if you're going to stay with your employer plan.
And then, of course, we have some other confusion here, because if, in fact, you are appropriately signing up for Part B and you are looking at a Medicare supplement, it's not the entire coverage that you need, because you also need to look at prescription drug coverage as well.
Right, and there are numerous plans available in Maryland, available in Pennsylvania, available in West Virginia, and it's critical that you choose a plan that's going to cover your medications.
And we tell people every day, husbands and wives will routinely not have the same plan, because one may not be taking any prescriptions. I can tell you which plan to take, the cheapest one out there. On the other hand, you have the other spouse that has an extensive, prescription list, and you better be paying attention as to which ones are appropriately covering you.
Yeah, very common for people to have husbands and wives to have two different prescription drug plans.
And it's it's a little bit of an inconvenience, but it's not that big a deal. It's nothing compared to the inconvenience of finding yourself not covered.
Yeah, if you're taking a medication that's not on the plan because you sign up for the same one your spouse did, is not a good idea, because then you're going to be paying the full cost for that medication.
I know you're always willing to help people, including changing supplements mid-year, which you can do. How can they get a hold of you?
They can call me at my office pretty much any time. Our local number is 301-797-1400. We have a staff there that's ready to help you in any way.
Paul, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Tranquility at Fredericktown Assisted Living and Memory Care provides a warm, home-like atmosphere that promotes daily life enrichment. At Tranquility, our medical director is a geriatric physician. Our professionals support and understand the various stages associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. We have on-site physical, occupational, and speech therapists, as well as around-the-clock licensed nurses. For more information, give Tranquility at Fredericktown a call today, because everyone deserves great care. Let us do the caregiving so you and your loved one can embrace life again.
Come on, Dad, let's go! We're gonna be late! Hurry!
Just one more bid on HurleyAuctions.com. If you haven't visited HurleyAuctions.com, you don't know what you're missing. Whether you're buying or selling, antique cars, tractors, boats, or real estate, you can do it all at HurleyAuctions.com.
Get to know Dr. Carrie Hesley at Diagnostic Imaging Services.
What I find most rewarding is caring for women through our Women's Imaging Center. We have a caring staff that will ease patients through an ultrasound, bone densitometry, breast biopsy, or mammogram. Our health team is sensitive to emotions involved in women's imaging and understands that every woman is at risk for breast cancer. Providing the community with a center that is so dedicated to breast health and the imaging needs of women is something special.
DIS Women's Imaging Center, providing women with progressive care.
Welcome to Contemporary Health Scene. Contemporary Health Scene focuses on the health issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Gabrielle Henry, Executive Director, Greenfield Assisted Living. Welcome to the show, Gabby.
Good morning, Mr. Day.
You know, one of the things that you and I have talked about is the real struggle in dealing with the onset of dementia within families. And there's this perception that trying to keep people at home is always better.
Yes, that is a perception. However, safety always comes first. I know that it's hard to lock down a home to keep that resident or your loved one in the home safely. So Greenfield actually offers a safe and stimulating environment with the lockdown communities, lockdown wings.
As we talk about in the home, one of the great challenges is you typically many times have a spouse or a single caregiver child trying to deal with the person who has a 24-hour-a-day affliction.
Yes, and that is very difficult, especially for the caretaker itself. The quality of life for that caretaker is at jeopardy due to the 24/7 demand of taking care and a watchful eye on that particular person.
And we oftentimes talk to families is the person is not combative and they're not a flight risk, then it probably can make some sense for them to attempt to do it at home. But as some of these other natural things occur as a result of the development of dementia, it becomes ever increasingly difficult to have that be a safe environment.
Yes, that is very true. And then in our community, we offer programming too. Yes, you can keep that resident at home. However, how much stimulus are they getting throughout the day? Are they using their, cognitive throughout the day, trying to trigger some short-term, long-term memories?
Well, it's fairly well documented that the lack of stimulus is not productive in terms of the person trying to stay at a higher level longer into the process.
Yes, that is very true. We are a firm believer that if you don't use it, you lose it.
And so we're going to pull up some pictures here, the same pictures that we've used somewhat in the past. And one of the things about it is that it does permit a person to not only have controlled environment within the unit that they're in, but also allow them to get out and enjoy life. And as you can see in this picture, and we'll show in the others, you can't see the fences.
Not at all. So it gives that illusion that it's their backyard and they're able to freely roam around throughout the community.
And one of the challenges that we have is oftentimes a family member will be interacting with a person with dementia, and that person will say, I want to go home. But oftentimes they don't realize that home could mean any number of things. It could mean the house they grew up in. It could be the house that they lived in when they were first married, their current house, and it could also be their room.
Yes, that is very true. So what we try to focus on as staff, I'm trying to redirect that particular resident and trying to have them focus on something else where home is just, an idea.
Well, and oftentimes, one of the problems that we have with family members is that they are part of the problem in terms of managing the care plan, because when they hear the patient say home, they immediately have this overwhelming sense of guilt that it means the house that they previously were living in, which it may or may not mean.
Yes, that is very true. I always advise family member staff to join in on their journey, on the dementia resident's journey, because they're never going to be back into our reality. So to keep that relationship going, join in on their journey.
Yeah, it becomes very frustrating, particularly for spouses, to try to interact with their spouse, but that spouse that they married 50 years ago is not the person they're talking to.
Yeah, so that's why, like I said, join in on their journey, keep that relationship going, and continue to keep that relationship going.
And one of our goals is normalization, to try to have it be as comfortable as possible. And one of the things that I like about your facility is the fact that you have these multiple neighborhoods. And tell us how that contributes to having a person feel like they're a fit.
So with the multiple communities, we're separated into 3 different communities. Those 3 different communities, we're separated by the service level, depending on the level of dementia that they're, residing in. With that, we also offer companion suites or private suites. With the private or companion suites, families are able to bring their own furniture in, really make it seem like it's their home. So we take their home that they were used to and we kind of compact it into a suite that we offer here at Greenfield.
And I think most importantly, if you have a high-functioning person, you need to keep them separated from the people who are really not functioning at all, because they're going to know that they don't belong there. So if they're with people of similar capabilities, they don't feel out of sorts with respect to the rest of the community.
Yes, at Greenfield we really try to reserve the dignity of our residents and also the quality of life.
And so as we address these things, you're going to deal with most of these issues. The goal is to keep people in a normal environment as they can, stimulated environment, and because your organization is focused on it, nobody feels bad that they're in the dementia unit that day.
Yes, that is very true.
So how can they get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of us by contacting our direct line at 301-766-9202.
Gabby, as always, thanks for taking time to
Thank
appear on
you.
the program. More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
The Community Foundation continues to create great impact in Frederick County, thanks to generous donors. As our community evolves, so do we. While we don't have a real crystal ball that can predict the future, we are poised and ready to see things differently and help nonprofits, city and county agencies, civic groups, faith-based organizations, businesses, families, and individuals to solve problems within our community.
Albright, Crumbacker, Mal & Idtel are a full-service firm that provides elder care services including managing incoming bills, bill payment, depositing checks, balancing bank statements, and preparing, planning, and filing personal tax returns. Put your mind at ease and call us today.
Welcome to the Making Sense feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various financial issues affecting the retirement community. With me today, Sandra Miller, Senior Vice President, the Family Heritage Trust Company. Welcome to the show, Sandy.
Thanks for inviting me.
Sandy, we're doing a little sequence of programs here on embedded risk. And many times when people make certain styles of investment, it's obvious from the investment they were trying to avoid risk. So the classic is CDs. You know, I want insurance from the federal government that I am not going to lose my money. And yet we're seeing some major money center banks right now actually imposing risk on a CD. How in the world could that happen?
Well, the banks are now starting to charge early withdrawal penalties, which in the past did not exist. So when you put your money in a CD, you were guaranteed to get your principal back, but the bank might take some of the interest as a penalty. Now they're actually charging a % of the total value of the CD. So in fact, you may not get all of your principal back.
So we recently had a case where a person had to cash in because his spouse was in a nursing home, $250,000 in CDs, and a regional bank here charged him $7,500 in order to cash in those CDs in order to be able to deal with his spouse's long-term care issue.
Well, that in itself is amazing because banks normally, in the past, as I mentioned, don't charge against your principal. They just keep the interest.
So you need to be paying attention, and even some of the most traditionally safe investments are now having risk embedded in them. We see people using a fixed annuity for 5 years as an alternative to a CD. Sometimes that can make some sense. It's not insured by the federal government, it's insured by an insurance company. But once again, if you had to cash that thing in early, you had an unanticipated expense like a spouse being in assisted living or a nursing home, many of those fixed annuities are going to have substantial early withdrawal charges.
Yes, and the term of those early withdrawals charges can be as long as 15 years. So in order to get your money back without penalty, you won't be able to take it all out at once, or you'll only be able to take a certain piece out every year without that penalty, or with a penalty, but without taxes.
And one of the things is that you will see the differentiation in these products that are being sold as guaranteed. It will show you contract value, and contract value means that's the value of it assuming you don't change anything. But normally on that page somewhere you will see a surrender value. And that surrender value, when you're in the penalty period, will be significantly less than the contract value, and in many instances it can be significantly less than the actual money that you invested in.
That's correct, because these penalty percentages that would be deducted can range anywhere from 5 to 7 or even higher percent. So when you go to take your money out, they take that off the top and give you what's left, and it could be significantly less than what you actually invested.
And then one of the other risks that we see is oftentimes I'll ask a person who you can tell by just looking at their life circumstance, they're very conservative. And I ask that person, do you invest in stocks? And what do they typically say?
Oh, they always say, oh no, I would never invest in stocks. But then they have to look at what they really are invested in.
And you look at those annuities and they're loaded up with stocks. And many times at an asset ratio that you would never consider if you were actually managing the stocks, being 100% stock.
That's right. And a lot of these annuities claim to get a high rate of return or a high rate of interest through the investments in the stock market. And if you're not aware that that's what the underlying investments are as to how you're getting that return, you're not doing your homework.
Well, and I've seen annuities that I'm mind-boggled. The market has had major increases in the last 5 years, and I'm seeing 5-year-old annuities and the person's made nothing.
That's correct, and you have to be aware of what is it that they're really investing in, because you need a diverse portfolio to participate in a full rise in the stock market. But annuities are insurance companies, and they do insurance well, but they don't do investments very well.
Well, at least for their own benefit anyway.
That's
they do.
true.
And so, oftentimes as I look at this stuff and I look at an annuity like that that's had no gain in value, I'll have people say, well, at least I haven't lost any money. And I look, well, actually you did lose money because it should have been appropriately invested. You would have made money in that period. And an opportunity loss is just the same as not having lost money itself.
Well, that's true, but they actually, when they signed the contract, they lost money because there is a significant commission charge that comes right off the top when you enter into an annuity contract.
And you're not fully invested because of that.
That's correct.
Sandy, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
My pleasure.
Thank you from Contemporary Retirement.
Remember a more carefree time? Leave your insurance worries to us. Write Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
These days, it seems like everything's online, and filling out claim forms and receiving and paying bills online isn't always easiest. That's why we at Quality First Insurance encourage you to just give us a call. Let us help.
Hi there, I'm Paul Sweeney with Quality First Insurance, and it's still just as simple. Our offices are open every weekday where you'll be able to call and speak to real, live people.
No detail was missed. I'm so glad that I turned to Quality First Insurance.
I've recommended Quality First Insurance to my friends who've been just as satisfied.
If you're not happy with what you're paying for Medigap, or more importantly, not happy with your service, give us a try. We're locally owned, and we take the time to provide you with the best. We are Quality First Insurance, and our mission is to provide quality products to quality people. Pick up the phone and give us a call today at 800-745-1411.